Well, thanks for clicking. I hope you enjoy this latest edition of the Philip Maloney podcast. I'm joined today by, well, not today actually, because I'm re-recording this intro. I'm going to be sitting down with Raphael Elaine, and Raphael's an old friend of mine who is currently a teacher, and he is a very avid Chelsea football fan. He's been to an amazing amount of games, etc. He and I wanted to sit down for a long time now and have a good conversation around pretty much racism and prejudice and what's happening with football at the moment, what's happening in wider society. I was quite enlightened actually by some of the points that Raphael rose in there. There's things that I hadn't thought about before, and I found it quite interesting. I think there's a lot of takeaway points that people can consider. So I hope you enjoy this little sit down with Raphael and myself on the Philip Maloney podcast. So do enjoy.
On a train and a bus in a car on the way to your job. All alone with your kids, with your wife or with your dog. You can listen anywhere, you can listen everywhere to the Philip Maloney podcast.
Joined with Raphael Elaine, my old school friend. You may have recognised him from the previous Wise Guys podcast Skype session that we did on the Philip Maloney podcast. Fantastic to have you back with me again today, Raff. And
thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We're on a WhatsApp chat group from old school friends from Cardinal Wiseman, and it's always quite lively debate. And I think we're kind of going to follow on from a few little bits and pieces that you can't really get into with your thumbs.
No,
it doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, for sure. But what I like as well about our school group, and I've got a lot of groups. I mean, I'm sure many people have a lot of WhatsApp groups. Out of all the groups I've got, it's probably the one that has, for me, the most depth. Like when I'm not talking one-to-one to a person, which obviously, that should work out quite well in terms of having a deep conversation.
Sure.
In terms of all the groups, considering the number of people in it, I would say, that's what's quite good for me. So it's nice to be in touch with you boys still, actually.
Yeah. So how do you find the different? When you say depth, are we talking range of opinions? Are we talking nationalities, or I suppose sort of all of those to a degree? But what do you find most beneficial about that? Or
I think it's interesting because I would have taken it for granted, actually, thinking about people's backgrounds and things like that. Had you probably not said that, and had I not thought about it in the last maybe few months as well. But yeah, I think that is a massive part of it. But that's us. That's where we are from, which is why I always feel so honestly blessed. I will never leave West London. I'm very much a homeboy when it comes to that. So, everything about Ealing Borough. I mean, I live in Hillingdon now, but it's all the same for me. So I think, everything about where everyone's from, who we are. We know that we've gone years not seeing each other actually, but I think we're all sort of carved from the same stone.
I think there's something to that. I'm again, like you, I feel really blessed with the amount of friendship groups that have just been so. I don't know if I don't want to say it's the bro code, but there's definitely something about just keeping where you can have difference of opinions but everybody still kind of clinks a glass at the end of it, and everyone's still friends, and everybody respects the that sort of that pool of ideas and understanding. I think let's get into it. I think what's been on your mind, Raff? How have you been? What you've been thinking about?
I think there's so much has happened, which I know we'll go into like some of the details in the last, I guess, 3-4 weeks, and a lot of it happened through football, which is so interesting because we always say it, but people say it quite flippantly. You know, football is a sort of microcosm of society, and you get the worst things in football that already exist out there, and sometimes people use that as a cop out to not really do anything about problems, whether it be racism, sexism, homophobia, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think football has been at the center of a lot of the things that I've been seeing or thinking, and maybe sometimes indirectly as well because of my own sort of supporters group and the work that we're doing. But the biggest thing for me, if I had to summarize it, is that my mind went straight back to a lot of the things that people said in June and July off of recent events where a lot of people were saying, you know, I want to learn, I'm listening. I mean, it was almost like a slogan at one point. I'm quite sure it was a hashtag.
Okay.
And that's good because it was honest from the sources that I saw, at least. It was very honest for most people, maybe not all. And there was a lot of humility. I think humility was at the center of it. A lot of people were like, oh my God, I had no idea people felt this way. People were talking to their friends and learning things for the first time, you know?
Yeah. So are we talking like the sort of George Floyd incident and the highlighting of the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the aftermath of everything. Like it was very much even some of the things that I'm still involved in now, like the supporters group work that we want to do. And what's interesting is the humility thing is still there, but it's taken on a different look. And one of the things that has jumped out to me the most is like who sets the agenda, like who sets the tone for what we talk about. And I think what did it to me was after the Millwall booing incident, and the arguments against them, actually. So I have, strangely enough, I have no problem with Millwall. I have no problem with the booing. I have no problem with any of it because it's so extreme. It's a form of, I guess, prejudice, ignorance, whatever, that I'm very used to seeing or growing up with. So I'm strangely comfortable with that. I can see it. I know where it is. You know, I can keep it at arm's length. I can jab it away if I need to, that kind of thing. The things that I think are powerful, though, and the things that made me think, oh my God, this is why we have racism in this country. It was when I listened to what people were saying to put Millwall fans down. And it was this sort of re-educating about what the kneeling meant, and this idea that it doesn't stand for the organization. People have got it wrong. We need to educate them. It's not about the organization. It's about equality.
It's not political.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's fine. It's it's not political. It's okay to probably say that. But when I listened to the definitions that were coming out about what the kneeling meant, I thought, well, that's interesting because you've come from a fairly humble place. When I say you, like, talking about a set of people that would have this argument, all for the right reasons, that you've come from a fairly humble place, but yet you still have the power to dictate and define what kneeling means. And I don't think I could pull that off as a black male in this country. So then I asked the question, like, who sets the agenda? Who controls that? Because I think we would have all accepted back in June, July, what taking a knee would have meant had we been doing it way back in June. We all knew what it meant when Colin Kaepernick was doing it. We all understood what it meant, and there was only one meaning. But to make it more user friendly for the people in our society today in this country, in the UK, we've had to sort of dilute the message a little bit and make it, we've had to open it up.
Okay, so taking the knee now doesn't just mean I'm fighting against the police brutality against black people in America.
Yeah.
So that was, I believe, I can never get his surname right, but Colin.
Kaepernick.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
Colin.
Colin Kaepernick.
I should get. See,
Yeah.
someone's going to go. You can't even be bothered to pronounce his surname, right? Okay, but that was the specifics of it, as from what I could understand.
Yeah.
And so, how do you feel it's now been?
I just think it's interesting because even I would have lost my way with it. It's interesting that it's good to say that it's more powerful than just talking about police brutality, because the actual agenda should be bigger than that. There is a lot to talk about, but when you see people adverse to taking a knee, and I'm seeing phrases like no Englishman should ever take a knee unless it's for Queen and country and that kind of thing. That's what's getting expanded about. And again, you get those kind of extreme things from the world of football. When you see stuff on Twitter being written, and then you see the response to that is quite a sort of, I don't know, please understand what it means. That's just pure compromise.
Yeah.
And then it's that hit me the hardest. It was like, wow, that's why we have racism in this country. Because in my opinion, I don't believe racism is as tribal as some people have you believe it is. I feel it's pretty much about power and who has it. And when that power is threatened, people have got a lot to say, whether it be about wealth, whether it be about positions in certain organizations. When people feel threatened by it, and all of a sudden you get racism. But when everyone's comfortable with the status quo, then no one says anything.
Right.
So what was happening, I believe, in this situation was, the argument against what Millwall was doing should have been, you know what, just don't kneel then. Just don't kneel and be proud of it. Don't kneel, fine. And your fans will back you as players, don't do it. But don't, if the one thing that we had, and I say we as someone who I would say, like as a black male in this country, I look at that stuff that was going on in America and probably wasn't affected by it instantly. But when I realized what we were trying to say and what we were trying to do, I thought, actually, it's worth the restart. It's worth everyone, open up their eyes and doing a bit of learning like they say they want to do. But then when you take that away with one hand and give diluted messages and then say it's about all equality, then no, it's not. It's not just because the FA or the Premier League say it is. It's not. It means one thing. And if you're too ashamed to say it's that one thing, then just don't do it. I'd rather all the players, if you want to show another sign of unity, link arms, what have you. I'm not actually particularly passionate about talking about the police brutality in America, if I'm honest. I don't live there. I've got family over there, and thank God they've never been affected by it. One of them is a police officer. I haven't said that, so that's but I would say I don't say it because I really want the kneeling to mean, no, look at what's going on over there. I just say it because that's what it means. And it's as simple as that. And if anyone's got a problem with it, don't do it, but don't change the message. And the fact that you've got the guts to change the message and the definition is symptomatic. That is the problem. That highlights exactly what goes wrong. That's what racism actually is. It's like you have the control and you decide and you dictate when we're going to do certain things or feel certain things or say certain things. But my voice will be drowned out. And you know what? We're talking about Black Lives Matter being a political organisation, and everyone seems to have a problem with that. I don't see the problem when EDL or everyone else is like, having their say in football, when football fans are highly represented in EDL, or people talking about UKIP and blah, blah. I really don't see the problem then. I'm not saying that the FA or the Premier League give them a platform. But it's interesting that was the biggest response. It's like, they're a Marxist organisation, so we don't talk about them. People that haven't got a clue about sociology all of a sudden talk about Marxism.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose that's see, for me, it spins me around with so much confusion. But then that's probably my issue, around it. When the knee when taking a knee was used as a symbol to draw attention to the issues and the struggles that were going on, or that are still going on to this day. I think that from what you're saying, the message really gets diluted down into what people's interpretations are on that. So you'll have a situation where you do it once for the national anthem, then it gets picked up, and just almost by default, you've got this scenario where there's a symbol, and it becomes too big for what it's trying to do. It's trying to concentrate a point, that it becomes a representation of absolutely every single injustice and issue that happens for racism in its entirety. Now, that's all right, but should it then be used at the start of every football match? Like, would you say that that's a? Would you say? I mean, you're not up here on the bench giving evidence or what have you, but conversationally, if Millwall fans, they booed the knee for whatever reason, they booed the knee. Is it enough for footballers to take the knee before every game, or is it too much for footballers to take the knee before every game? Can you ever pull that back and redefine its meaning, or is there a part of taking the knee? And I think you might have alluded to this before, but is there a part of taking the knee that kind of says, hey, look, we're doing something about it? You can't say that about us, because before every single game we take the knee, and therefore, we're exonerated from any future sort of reprimands in regards to what we're doing about racism.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I feel like it's almost trying to have the best of both worlds. Like, on one extreme, I mean, it's a massive symbol. Again, when you go back to the origins of that, and not probably the true origins, because I've heard all sorts about slavery days and what taking the knee meant back then. But if we just go back to our friend Colin in the NFL, I mean, for considering what he has gone through, still goes through and went through. It's a massive deal for people to do exactly the same thing now across the world in different sports. It's insane when you think about that. So on one hand, it's almost like you've got, if you're, I don't know, the Premier League or all these other commercial outfits, you've got your feet in like two stables, and you're, on one hand, it's like, yeah, we're going that extreme. But on the other hand, you can say, no, this is about equality, and you can dance between these two. So like you say, come 2-3 years time, or whenever next season something goes wrong, you can say, you know what, we were committed to this. We went all the way with Black Lives Matter. That's what we were talking about. But if nothing goes wrong, we can just talk about equality. So I feel like, to be honest with you, I don't know where it was going. I don't know how long they intend to do it for. I just know it was damn right easier to do it when there were no fans, which this has proven. So they probably didn't really think of an end game for it. I would have been fine if they didn't do it at all. But 1 game, 2 games. But I think if there is a message about let's think about equality now, it'd be easier for the players. They do it pretty much when someone dies. Just stand around the circle, link arms or something. Have a fresh symbol. Do that before every game. I think that would be really powerful. I think football does need that. I think the message on a personal level, I think the message should be bigger than talking about Black Lives Matter actually in football. And that's just a personal point of view. Because I think football does need to look at itself and look at equality and look at everything that, the horror stories that I hear about, women, the homophobic stuff that goes on right now in grounds, it's shocking. But again, it's like, just come up with a fresh message, but don't hide behind something that's actually quite serious. Just keep it out of football. If you're not ready for it, keep it out of football.
Yeah.
But don't jump on the bandwagon of it and abuse it, because what it does is it takes away the power that people, because there'll be someone else outside of football who will be talking about what that actually means to support, taking the knee and all the rest of it. They'll be talking about Colin Kay's life. They'll be going through all of that stuff. And then you've got an organization, commercial giant, over here, pretty much taking the mick out of it with a load of people, a load of good doers, who actually think they're doing the right thing by saying, to appease into a load of like right-wing people saying, no, it doesn't mean what you think it means. And it does mean that. Black Lives Matter organization, the actual words itself, that's what it is. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
No apology.
Well, I mean, it's, see, the thing is, I mean, if you're coming from a position where you are on the receiving end of it, and you're going to have a completely different perspective to the people who are being asked to change what they're doing.
Yeah.
If you were going to, like, if you were a new manager at an organization, the first struggle that you've got is to get the people to sing from your hymn sheet, work the way that you want them to work in order to progress and to do well. So if you reverse that, and you've got the person who's sort of at the perceived at the bottom of the rung, who doesn't have a voice, who doesn't get to say things, and they need to sort of push up in an organization, you don't tend to get listened to unless you do something quite radical. So if you're a small pawn in the in the big chess game, you've got to do something really radical, like take a knee during the national anthem in order to be heard. So there's it's a good thing to do in order to highlight it, but the real problem and the real struggle is where do you then take that from that point? And it's sort of the hardest thing to look at, because you do get the Millwall fans, and I know what you're saying about it, sort of, you don't feel that racism is as sort of tribal as it's been made out to be, or it's sort of used as an excuse or what have you. That was my go-to thought about racism. I kind of think, like, if I put myself, if I sort of bring it right down and concentrate it, look at myself, and I say, well, Phil, are you acceptant of absolutely everybody through all walks of life that you come in contact with? And the answer is certainly not. I'm not. And I'm not, for some reasons, which might be learnt, which might be sort of suffered, where I've so learnt maybe like from my upbringing, from my surroundings or what have you, or from toing and froing with people or what have you. As I get older, it's kind of, has somebody done something, or has there been a consistent issue with another type of person? And so I look at myself and I go, well, how forgiving am I, and do I have a certain degree of intolerance? And I think the honest answer to that, and if anybody was to ask themselves that question, I think the answer is yes. Because you've got it in all walks of life. You've got certain neighborhoods that don't like other neighborhoods, right? You've got some countries that don't like other countries. You've got nationalities, you've got religions, and there's a lot of people tribally who, like, first and foremost, your first tribe is your family. Okay, outside of that is your community, and then outside of that is your county, country, etc., etc. And you've always got a sort of a degree of what's the word? Sort of camaraderie within that tribe, within that pact, and that's kind of it's a very sort of like Neanderthal type basic instinct that's within people. So for the Millwall fans to boo at people taking the knee, and then for that to then be um, racist. It probably was, but was it racist because I don't know how was it racist because they were black, or was it racist because there was a sort of another sort of slur on Winston Churchill or what have you? And I'm not saying I know. I'm just asking the question, because there's sort of degrees of understanding to that. The Millwall fans could have just clapped and gone, whatever, here they are taking the knee again. And this is now a new change to football. This is something that we're going to have to get used to. I'm a big, I don't know if I'm a big fan of Winston Churchill, but, Winston Churchill, for me, I've never sort of been privy to any of the issues that people have with him. As an Indian, whether I'm Anglo-Indian or, I'm mixed, right? I've got Irish, Portuguese, British, and Indian blood running through my veins. So I look at Winston Churchill and what he said about, Indians and what have you, and I think, well, okay, well, can I forgive him for that? Probably, yeah, because I think there's things that outweigh us as people, where you have to kind of apply a bit of tolerance and a bit of resilience towards it. So bringing that back down to what does taking the knee mean? I guess what I'm trying to unpick here is if it's as pure as what we're being told it is, then it's a really good thing. If people have jumped on it and have tried to make it move in their own narrative, in their own directions, for their own wants and needs, then well, it's a terrible shame, because it's taken a very a really brave stance, and it's moved it into an area where there are people that can't jump on board to such a simple idea that everybody should just agree with, that Black Lives Matter. So it's kind of it's there where it sits a little bit uncomfortable with me. Maybe it's just not. Maybe I need to relax on it a bit. I don't know. Maybe it needs to tighten up.
What I think as well is, like, and a lot of people will disagree with me, because they will be going through Twitter and they will have conversations with people who do have a good understanding of of the organization, and maybe, I don't know how strong the evidence will be, but things that they may have said, things that they may be supporting, that they say, no, actually, this isn't what we want in our country, and that's fine. Again, don't take the knee, then that's fine. If that's what it means, to you in terms of your understanding. So there will be people out there, 100% will disagree, that it's just because a few white males felt ruffled by it. But the way I see it is, that's at the foundation of it. Like, one of the other things that was said back in June, July, was, let's get comfortable being uncomfortable. Let's have difficult conversations. And the fact of the matter is, none of us ever want to be in a place of discomfort. As living creatures, none of us want to be in a place of discomfort. So you're always edging towards comfort. If I'm in the gym right now and I'm doing, 10 reps of something,
okay,
at a high pep, I know I am pushing, and I have to switch on. If that number gets high and I go to 20, I might be finishing it off, but I'm without even realizing it, my brain is looking for that shortcut somewhere just to finish this thing off. Even if it means that it's not a full extension, whatever, you're looking for it. No one wants to be uncomfortable. Right. These conversations were uncomfortable for, in the grand scheme of things, a teeny weeny bit of time. And I've had my own first-hand experience with this. I'm talking to people who, and I kept quiet for a long time as well, Philip, which is interesting as well. Like, I didn't have a lot to say straight away. I'd say I went 2 weeks trying to understand what was going on globally. Still getting my head around COVID, but trying to understand. So when I actually finally started talking, I was like, now's the time to actually open your mouth, Raff. Now you actually have an understanding of what's going on. And this mirrors quite a few things that you've seen before. I could have gone through the whole thing. And just from talking to people who I know want to do well, they're not comfortable with it. It's not that they're bored by it. They're not comfortable taking themselves to that dark place consistently, because it means a lot of looking in the mirror. It means a lot of looking back at things that you've been a part of. And it means doing it for a long period of time, accepting that, you know what, I may have played a role in this. And it wasn't that long ago. It might even have been last year. And I'm a grown man. You know, I'm not talking about kids here. I'm talking about adults.
Right.
So I understand the discomfort with it. So when I see, you know, a group of Millwall fans as an example booing, and by the way, this group of Millwall fans, this was 2,000 ballot fans. These weren't mates that all went in together. I mean, they may know each other.
Yeah,
but that's
sure.
the ballot system. So that shows you something. That highlights how big the problem is. If 2,000 random fans can come together and feel, you know, it tells you something about the fan base. You could argue, fine. I'm not going to pick on Millwall though. I'm going to say it tells me something about the country.
Yeah,
from
what I hear, just on that, from what I hear about Millwall and Millwall fans is they are probably one of the tightest knit fan bases of camaraderie. So it's like when you've said that, and I don't know a huge amount about football, I just happen to, you know, sort of understand a little bit around it. But I can imagine, as any one of those Millwall fans got successful in the ballot, there's probably a chat group that would have gone, I'm there too, mate, you know, and
100%,
the likelihood of them knowing each other as Millwall fans and as people who would go and put themselves forward for a ballot, the likelihood is, I think, there's probably quite high that there's a common thought.
100%. That's a good point.
Going through there, I think so. So I could, you know, forgive that. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was countrywide in that respect, because Millwall is a very they're like a family. You know? It's like it's like a huge family for them as supporters, which is probably why you didn't really see it anywhere else. To the same extent. I know Sky were shitting themselves on the very next match, wasn't it? Because it was cute. Was it
Chelsea Leeds were on that night, which I'll come to in a second.
Ah, right, okay, Well, I'm happy to. Sorry, I interrupted you, Raff, but I just interjected.
No, but you're right.
That's got adult friends who are looking at themselves again, or that you're kind of hearing the conversations and you're going, well, I'm you know, that's going to slide. So at what point has it sort of gone? Do you know what? I need to say something about this.
Yeah. So it was the discomfort side of things made me think that's what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for people to not be comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's, again, a bit like what I said about who changes the agenda. For me, that's the heart of racism. Again, like people, it's so easy to point fingers and talk about the 80s when they were throwing banana skins at John Barnes and blah, blah, blah. Like that stuff for me is on the surface. At the heart of it, it's people who want to control the agenda. It's people who don't want to be rattled. It's people who are only prepared to go so far with trying to create change. You know, they ain't giving, you know, not many people would give up their jobs for someone else. But, you know, look how outspoken people were when Alex Scott got her job on Sky, for example, and they did away with, you know, your Matt Letizier's and all the rest of it. You know, some of the words that were being said there, it's like, oh, you know, it's like, you know, it couldn't be her.
I'm not that familiar with it. So who is she, and what did she? She took over a Sky presenter.
Pundit job, yeah. I mean, she's everywhere. She's everywhere at the moment. You know, she's on Sky and all the rest of it. But like, you know, when she took a couple of spots that would have belonged to, you know, your old school ex-football players who sit there probably doing next to zero research actually as pundits and just fairly comfortable in their jobs. A lot of people are outspoken, and it comes back to the same thing. When you feel threatened, you show your true colours. Okay. And this is what I feel about the Millwall thing. With the Millwall thing, I think at the heart of it, yes, there are definitely people that can probably tell me 10 things that they've said as an organisation that you don't agree with, things that you think, how dare you say that, things, you know, I mean, I personally, I did sociology up to A-level. I love Marxism. I think it's fantastic. I love all these theories. I think it's amazing, you know, but so I don't understand the argument against that personally, as in like, that's a reason to beat up on it. I actually find it very, very interesting. Karl Marx is buried in Highgate. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
what we talk about here. But
Okay, so Mark,
when,
so is he the socialist?
yeah.
Okay, all right, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So when people give me examples of Millwall fans who that's why they don't agree with it, I say, fine, you can give me all these reasons. But I know at the heart of it is, you know what, they don't want to see their game being used for this. They don't want to see their game highlighting a potential issue. They want to speak free like they always have. You know, they want to say things. They don't want you to be sensitive about it. They've probably got black friends. They probably will tell you that all day long. They don't want anything to change. And that's the point. They don't want the discomfort. They were willing to have, so I know people are willing to have those conversations in depth all summer. There was nothing else to think about other than COVID. What else to think about? But now you don't want to talk about it anymore. And that's why racism exists, because no one's prepared, or let's say no one, people that are in control and have the power to do things only want to go that far as opposed to that far. You're not prepared to really keep scraping under the surface and look at some of these sophisticated, complex things that go on. So yeah, you know, BLM, Boo Like Millwall, which I actually found quite amusing, and then they're sticking that around everywhere. It's like, yeah, you can look at that and you can say that they're, you know, knuckleheads and and you know, we're so much better as a fan base, depending on what club you are. But there was something at the heart of that, because football does tend to do that. Football shows you, it's like it's like society in the magnifying glass, and like they're not happy with all of this. Can we not just get on with it? Can we not just get on with the game in the same way that someone said, can we not just get on with life? Can we just stop talking about this now? Can we just move on from this now?
Okay.
That's what I felt from the beginning. That's why some people aren't happy with it. And I'm the person that'll say to you, mate, I'd have cancelled the kneeling 2-3 months ago. You know, and I've been happy with that.
Yeah, but so there's you know, I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth or what have you, because you have exposed yourself as a Marxist, but so you've sort of had this internal conflict from where you see people wanting to sweep it under the carpet,
without realizing they're sweeping though.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But well, maybe by sort of like minimizing it, maybe just sort of trivializing it a little bit. To what is, you know, to what is a big issue. So is it their fight? Is it their fight to, you know, to be had? So if we're looking at, I mean, let's be really sort of like, you know, basic with it. So you've got your let's call it the white male, and the perception is that he's sweeping under the carpet the issues of the black male, who sees an injustice within the world or sport, however you want to put that. So there's a point where it kind of gets enough for you to speak out about it. So what would you see as a more measured or more reasonable approach from someone like that to the issue?
I would say this: it's constant reflection, because if I've got how would I say, like a micro version of what I think is going on a bigger scale. So I have seen people, I ain't naming one, I've seen people, right, who were quiet as mice when this first started. Fine. They got more comfortable talking about it, and that comfort, they were uncomfortable, you know, because it was that phase where, you know, it was understanding, I probably do need to say something. And then maybe because of their organizations that they work for, and it's, you know, it's everywhere, people got more comfortable talking about it. But then they went out of that phase where they weren't listening anymore. They were just talking. And the constant reflection, the reflection rate was higher at the start than it definitely was now. So those same people probably feel either nothing for me to learn anymore. I've done enough reading. I've heard enough, you know, podcasts or what have you. I've done my bit. And now I'm in a position to, you know, move forward. So what this is like a privilege thing. That's, you know, what can we do? You only see well through your eyes. And I say this as someone that I know what my privileges are. You know, I know that there are things that I have benefited from, and can get away with that there are other people can't, whether it be me running past someone up Ruislip station steps and there's someone less able-bodied person there, whether it be walking at night down some alley to take a shortcut, which a woman couldn't. There's all sorts of different versions of it that we all are aware of or should be aware of. So I'm not going to knock that. It is what it is, but you do have to check yourself. And those people that are in that privileged position to consistently almost rise to the top and take control of the agenda didn't realize that was what happened. They didn't feel themselves. They were sort of floating so slowly. They didn't realize that they were moving. They thought they were in the same place they were back in June. It's like, no, you're not. You don't even hear yourself anymore. You don't even realize that what you've done is you're talking with more authority about this from a position of power. Now, if I just look at your John Barnes, your Ian Wrights, and all your, we're talking about people that have been so outspoken. Like, I've knocked John Barnes for actually being wheeled out every time there was a racist incident and talking. And I say, don't be used like John Barnes. Don't be used like that, because what you're doing is you're making it a really sort of simpleton argument when it comes to racism and terrorism, because they're going to take you out. You're going to talk about it on TalkSport for about 2 days in a row. Then no one's going to hear from you again. Then they're going to wheel you out again a year later, and you're trivializing it by your own presence without realizing. Having said all that, people like him have been talking for years. Nothing's happened. Now, I'm not buying that it's because of George Floyd, because we're now saying that we're not kneeling for that. But when someone else wants to talk about it, when someone else decides that we're all going to recognize that, when someone else wants to stick it up on the screen, after years of people taking abuse, that's now when we're all meant to listen. And it's like someone has to. That's what I want people to learn and discuss. I want people to have these kind of discussions. I don't talk about Millwall booing. I don't talk about people shouting black this or fraying banana skins. That's simpleton stuff. What we're talking about here, and I'll give you an example, and we're probably going to go on to it anyway. Like, players walking off the pitch, right? So it was only the other day. It feels like yesterday to me. Maybe we're getting old, but it was only the other day people were talking about the idea of walking off the pitch as a, when there's a racist comment. No, you don't do it. You stick out. You keep going. You make sure you show them actually how you can play. So you beat them. You beat them with the ball. They want you to walk off. That was the argument. Okay. If I'm honest with you, I'm not saying it's one or the other. I'm just saying that's exactly what the argument was. I remember at best a couple of years ago, Gary Neville saying that he could have done better in the changing rooms, where he probably could have supported his teammates more in the changing room. But he felt, this is what we're doing. We are going to keep playing ahead. We're not going to ignore it, but we're going to beat them. Maybe it wasn't the thing to do. That's him saying that. And then the other day, when they had that walk off after the Denver Bar business in the European game, just in the studio, because I was watching Chelsea European game in the studio, you got Joe Cole, whoever else, and they were talking about it. They were looking at that incident, and quite easily, flippantly, like Joe Cole, someone was like, it's great to see the players getting together, unified, and then moved on. Now, Joe Cole hasn't said anything wrong, and then people misunderstand me if I sound like I'm criticising him. But he said that so slick, and everyone nodded their head and agreed, and then everyone moved on from that, as though that's always been the narrative. I thought, that hasn't been your narrative. That hasn't been your narrative, and here we go again. And I know that I've probably got a tendency to look quite deeply into some of these things, but I look at them because when you analyse them, you break it down. This is why we have problems in this country. Because I'm quite sure if I go back, 2 years, same kind of situation, same kind of studio, and Patrice Evra says it, Ian Wright says it, or something like that, I'm not convinced everyone just moves on and go, yeah, good thing to do. I think we're debating it. And talking about it. But, that's...
Do you think they might have been scared to take on the topic?
Maybe.
Do you think there might have been a producer in the ear going, move on, guys, this isn't your subject, in like a way of like, everyone's watching what's going on here, and potentially there's a career ending slip about to happen because one of you guys, was it a white panel? I don't know, was it all, were they all white? It's often the
I'm
case.
not sure. Probably, yeah. I think one woman. Yeah, I think it was for a white panel, one white.
Could well have been. So we're in a place now where, like you, I love to look into it and I love to think about why did that person say that? Why did they look over there before they did that, or what have you? So you've got Joe Cole on a emerging incident, very little information. Yeah, I mean, how does he do it? How does he take that on without any criticism?
I mean, in some ways, it might have been easier for them to not. I mean, it was half time to Chelsea game. I mean, you didn't have to do a review of that particular game. It might have been easier to avoid it completely. And actually, you're right. You know, they didn't have a lot of time. We're talking about half time. We're about to go into the second.
What
half.
If they just ignored it, Raff? No.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what if they'd never gone to it?
Yeah.
What if they never went to it at that time? What I'm sort of trying, not trying to allude to or what have you, but what we're doing is we're bubbling up the bottom of the swamp almost. Do you know what I mean? In the way that in the way that some of the people, because you can kind of like go, do you know what? Yeah, just let's just get over that or what have you. And the reason why I say that is because I think that we can get stuck in all of the sweating the details. But the bottom line is that Joe Cole or anybody should have been able to express an opinion at that point without fear of any other reprisal, as long as it was just their opinion. Now, because everybody has an opinion, everybody's opinion is scrutinized around these issues. So it's really difficult. Like I can kind of sympathize with. He probably had loads more to say about it. Do you know what I mean? But as soon as he starts getting passionate about it, he's talking to potentially millions of people at the same time.
Yeah.
And it only takes 2 or 3 of them to go, that's out of order, what he said about that situation, that he's got no what do you call it, like a iron in the fire or what have you, or he's got no cards in the game or what have you. It's bloody difficult.
Yeah.
But
listen, I'm not.
Tell me more about it, because.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not. I'm not knocking him for not saying more than he did.
Get that.
I'm just saying it's interesting that and it's not even him. It was all of them. It was just interesting that it was almost like a given that walking off the pitch was the right thing to do. Because subconsciously, if you're watching the TV and you don't know, like, what's been said for the last X number of years about that exact situation, you probably think it's normal. So what I take from that is, wow. So, and it wasn't, don't get me wrong, it was, I don't think they sat there and plotted it out. It was just, it's a sign of the times. But again, it's another one. Again, if I compare that situation and that response to anything that your Ian Wrights and all the rest of them said in the past, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing when you weigh it up and you think, wow. So you guys get to just literally say that that's normal. You know, that happened because a bunch of players actually had enough. You know, now I'm not saying, again, and when that I'll come on to that chapter.
No. Yeah, listen, I'm not going to hold any, like, I'm learning, we're learning, we're discussing. You say whatever you want, however you want to say it. You know, but I hear what you're saying. So those players were, they were frustrated. They've just sort of gone through this whole, episode of, a continued episode of persecution or wrongdoing towards black people, and that linesman got the straw that broke the camel's back for Demba Ba, right? And but it's not to simplify, or it's not to say, well, we could look at that and go, oh, he's overreacted, but equally so, it's not to say that linesman's Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
You know, there is a there's a distinct middle ground between what that guy didn't realize he was doing at the time to what he was faced with as his perception of an insult, if I can say it like that.
Yeah.
So where's the middle ground? Where's the because everything at the moment is so effing muddled. Because even to the fact that I can make that retort to what you're saying means that we are so far from solution, because all I have to do is turn the coin over and go, yeah, but have you thought of it like this? Which you have obviously thought of it like that, you know, but it's a common way of somebody sweeping an issue under the carpet.
Well, I don't think, you know, again, on the personal level, and I find it quite easy to separate my personal opinions from things that I'm watching. I don't think they should have walked off the pitch. And this is the irony here of, again, going back to the BT studio, where they said what they said, over what that was, in comparison to some of the things that we've heard and seen at football grounds where no one has walked off the pitch. That's what I'm saying. It's like, wow. So you guys get to say that off the back of this guy saying that. In my opinion, it wasn't a game stopper. But actually, this is what, you know, going on to this idea of should they not. Then Mabam was upset for a reason over here. Players decided to walk for a reason over here. He didn't ask for any of that, you know. So that's their reaction. They just been kneeling on the ground. Maybe they heard something that in their heads was worse than it was. It only takes one person to say, look, we're doing this, captain, and everyone else follows. So actually, that's not, you know, 22 players really in terms of brains ticking over.
So that's an interesting take. Okay, yeah, I missed that in what you were saying, probably because I interrupted you. But so they get to pick and choose what they're going to highlight, what they're going to put on the cameras, what they're going to start talking about and deal with. And
I don't think it was a game stopper. I personally don't think it was a game stopper, but I'm not like, you know, when people send in.
What do we know now? What do we know? Because you know, on our WhatsApp group, it went a bit lively, didn't it? You know, we were talking about what was going on, and I I always shit myself actually when I give an opinion, because I think to myself, well, this is my thought process. I go, I've got something to say about that. And then I go, shit, but I've got some black mates. And then I go, yeah, but they're my mates. Yeah. And then I go, do you know what? I'm going to fucking say it anyway. All right. I'm going to say it anyway because I love them and I love everybody. And I think that I haven't got a filter.
Yeah.
I haven't even got a text filter. So I just sort of say what I think and just hope, you know, cry for forgiveness when I do, or acceptance, you know. So it went lively when
it did for various reasons. And I know that what I was looking at may have been very different to what other people were thinking and looking at the time, and even now actually.
Give us your point of view, because from what I mean, I'm going off the top of my head. Referee referred to him as this black guy, or
the official, fourth official.
Yeah. It was the alliance. Oh, okay, yeah. So what were they substituting someone, or?
I'm not even sure of the situation.
Right. Yeah, okay. So it was a situation where he referred to the fourth official referred to the player as this black guy, or this black guy, and then and
also used whatever word.
Negra. I mean, these are like what, Spanish, Portuguese type official. So they would use something which sounds a lot like the N bomb. To refer to the guy as calling him like a what is Spanish for black?
I think it could be negros or something.
Something like that, negros or something like that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've got a really unfortunate set of circumstances here. And then you can hear people going, no, it's his language, or whatever. Going, no, why do you why are you to me? Which
like I think are new. I think that this is interesting as well, because I think a lot of people, because the initial thing I thought, oh God, someone's just gone and said the N word or whatever. Then you find out it's a little bit more than that. But by the time I've actually heard the story and seen Demba Ba, I hear him saying, yeah, but why do you refer to him as the black
not
man,
just the guy?
Yeah, why
Right.
everyone else, you don't say the white guy, da, 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 da. Now, listen, that as a point, it's not, it wasn't, in my opinion, a racist situation. Everyone's thrown in the fact that the interpretation of the word made it sound worse. I don't think that was a factor for Demba Ba. He's a well-traveled man. He's played in various countries. He knows languages, from Turkey to this country to wherever, so it's like he's very much familiar with it all. But let's just focus on the idea of him being upset because that was said. I was like, fine, like he's entitled to feel upset about it. I can't tell someone how to feel about that. Would I get upset? I'm not entirely sure if I would or not, but I don't know what, if I had the wrong kind of day and then everyone's just been kneeling, whatever, and then I'm whatever, I don't know, I'm putting any emotion in it. But maybe I do react. Maybe I do think, hang on a second, why is that? He's got a number on his back. Just use his number. Like, why are you even doing that? Now, if, again, separating that completely from the players gathering around and then ending to, wanting to walk off, just looking at that as a reaction. When I said it, I think I said it in the group, didn't I not? I'm sure I said people are going to call this at some point an overreaction, but what they're not going to understand is he's entitled to feel that way. Like everyone else on this planet is entitled to feel that. You can't tell him how to feel and how to express himself. When what happens, I think it's the Micah Richards video or someone's video. The Micah Richards video comes out. And I had that in my other group, actually, in my supporters group.
Okay, so tell me about that.
So that was interesting because in that group, so we've got various groups, and then we've got one group that's been working on this agenda, which I've also got interesting thoughts about now, because it's the same group that put together the podcast, right? We've called it like an inclusion group. There's lots of different things, some cool things that we're working on. And I sometimes think some of the things that we're talking about probably shouldn't be pigeonholed into that group. I would see no problem with this being in our, the wider group. But again, that's another question. But it came up there, and the question was like, what do you think, kind of thing, of what Mike is saying? Press play, and I watched it. I was like, interesting. So we saw the same video. And I was like, I kind of knew that was going to be a question. It was going to be, what do you think? Because what you basically mean is you kind of agree with what Mike is saying there. But again, it's the same problem. We're not breaking up the two problems. We're not separating the walking off and abandoning the game for a man saying that, why do it? And I said, and I think I said it in our group as well, that's what no compromise looks like. But it's difficult for people who never have to compromise to understand that. If you have a set of privileges that allow you to float across the globe, go where you want to go, do what you want to do, never be looked at in a shop, go to any place in this country and just have a great time and pick oranges off trees or what have you. And then there's a set of us on this planet that have to think carefully about our holiday destinations. We'll never travel certain games for football away. If you're that person, you have a very different mindset. So one person or group of people are in constant state of compromise. Another group of people don't even know what compromise looks like, because you're just used to it. And you're not bad people, you're not evil. So then when a situation like that happens, you call it an overreaction, because you don't realize, no, that's what happens when someone is fed up having to have, the box and the label and the this and the that. And if there was ever a time to say it, maybe it was now. And that was kind
of my go-to thought on that is overreaction. That's my that is my go-to thought, and I don't give much. But part of me also goes, all right, okay, professional, lots of money being paid, very, very privileged position in many respects to be a professional footballer and what have you. But yes, there is also an understanding of that. So how does that translate onto the fourth official in regards to what where does he stand? Does he need re-educating? Does he need to lose his job? Does he need to does he need to take it on the chin, and do they need to shake hands and just kind of like go, hey, let's come to a more civil compromise over what happened? Or
I wouldn't go as far as education. I mean, at the very most, he should say that he's in sport. Okay, I'll give you an example. So, track and field it's been my sport since I've been a teenager, right?
Yeah.
The culture is very different. The culture is very different to football, very different to cricket. Everything from, and let me just, if I start with the basics, you learn at a young age, and I mean a very young age, but let's just say I pick on, 15, 16-year-olds could be internationals, right? You could have 15, 16-year-old internationals, like young under 17s representing the English schools, what have you. You learn at a young age that can be from any race, any gender. You grow up having full respect for any style, and you have to try hard for it. Like, I remember as a 17, 18-year-old, the girls, for example, who were like mega stars that would be running amazing times for like 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters. Then by the time you get to seniors, right, and you're operating at a high level, there will be women in the world who are like they'll beat you. So your understanding of equality and sport is very, very different to football.
Right.
In cricket likes to believe it, but there's still some sort of like weird colonial thing going on there. So it has a version of wanting to be that way as well. So when I look at the officials in these sports, like athletics, whatever, they've got their thing. Don't get me wrong, they're not angels. They have their thing to annoy people. But when I compare it to football, the only thing I would say is he has to ask himself as a person, why did I not use his number? Why was not when a player's got a colour on his back and a number, it's the easiest way to identify. But why was that my go-to ID? I don't think he needs to lose a job. I don't think it's anything worse than what most teachers say when they're referring to kids in the classroom when they're trying to put things that I'd even do. I don't think it's anything about jobs or going on some special course. But I do think it would be interesting for him to ask himself his own question. Out of all this, I actually completely forget about him. I think about the BT thing. I think about the reaction to Michael Richards' video. I think about all these things around it. I completely forgot about the fourth official.
Yeah. I mean, that's so. I mean, there's a part of me that sort of crumbles for him. I put myself there, and I go, "What if I made that mistake?" Like you said, something you might have said, something he might have said. But we're living in a society now where there are people who are under so much, they're on the receiving end of so much intolerance around their lives, like what you were saying, because I never thought about it. You've got to think about your holiday destination. Yeah, so there's certain places where you don't want to go, where there's such a degree of intolerance. You're just like, do you know what? I've heard about that. I'm just not even going to bother, which is a real shame, because you would think that there must be a little old lady out there somewhere who wouldn't be in that town or in that city or what have you, and you get a nice experience. But yeah, what a way to have to live, and it's it definitely bears thinking about. The solutions around that, are we ever going to find ourselves at a point where there is no racism? Personally, I don't. But what does that journey look like, and is it even worth taking? I mean, how many steps down that road do you take for a solution? That might be a bit too much of a question to say solution. Let's say sort of like, what are we looking for now in coming out of 2020? How do we put 2020 behind us and look to the next 5 years of what this issue looks like? How does it come to a more palatable balance?
I think people don't listen enough. And I think people don't communicate properly. So you got this, like, again, going back to that issue, there people would have been passionate about that. Yeah, call him off, walk off the pitch. You can't say, you know and anything. I don't care what N word it was. You can't say, and that would have been on one extreme. Then you would have people really, really quiet, thinking, "Oh God, I don't want to battle against what they've just said there because I'm going to be racist." But you don't need those extremes. Those are the two extrees that don't allow us to progress anywhere. What we do need is people to communicate properly, to talk about the right level of sophisticated issue that we do have in a country like this. I can't talk about everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And you need people to actually listen and digest and listen and digest. You might not be the problem solver. You might not be, what you said earlier, it might not be your fight, actually. And that's okay if it's not your fight. Don't feel guilty. Don't let guilt drive your actions, because when guilt drives your actions, you ironically will become the problem. You'll be that second person that's, again, moving all the things around, panicking so you don't get judged as racist. And while you're doing that, what you're doing, you're taking control again. You're taking the ability of the people who have the insight and have the power to do something.
That's a very good point, actually. I think there's a they look at triangulation. So you've got the victim, you've got the perpetrator, and then you've got the hero, rescuer. Very often the rescuer, without even looking at the solution, will always move towards the perceived victim in these things, and then take control of that. And 9 times out of 10 turn themselves into a victim, because actually there's more nuanced to it, and they've just put themselves into a hole where they've gone, oh, I'm all in here, where you can't say the N word, let's say, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, maybe there is like not room for it, but we have to discuss it. We have to talk about it. We have to, be able to or have some freedoms. Have some freedoms, because everybody's going to need them. Even old Denver there is going to need some leeway and some freedom and some slack in his life and in his career and what have you. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to sort of die on the sword of you've referred to me as the black guy. You gotta find your hill to die on. And sometimes it might have even been the one before that for him, and maybe that's a frustration as well for a lot of people. Sometimes we don't take our opportunities as to when to get angry.
And before, the other thing as well I'll say is, but before this whole thing started, I made it really, really clear to a lot of people around me, because I know, like, how I would be with something like this as an agenda, an agenda item. It's like, it's like all or nothing. It's either I'm not talking about this or we're going the whole way. And I've been here before with very similar things where it's like, it's like a rocket dropping off bits everywhere else. And it's like, I lost you, man. I lost you. I thought we were doing it. I thought we were going to the moon together. But I knew you didn't have the endurance to do it. And I kind of warned you didn't have the endurance, which is why I didn't want to, like, get into bed with you in this whole thing in the first place. But it's like, I'm starting to sense, when I say endurance, I don't just mean talking about it. I mean, going, like, yes, it's hard work. It's a complex matter. Get your head in it and be prepared to call people out about things who are wrong. They might be friends. There might be people that you're going to upset. There might be people on Twitter that are going to come back at you, whatever. You're going to be prepared to fight it. Or let's not do it at all. And I think, going back to the idea of, again, it's not necessarily a solution, but people need to listen and really, really, really think about what their role is in these kind of situations when people are looking to make changes. The reason why some of those Black Americans were so hurt and are to this day, actually, is because they all stand there, like, they cry with their national anthem. I mean, I wish that we had that over here. They're passionate. They stand alongside people from the age of whatever, hand on the heart, singing that national anthem. I'd be hurt too if that same country kind of betrayed me. If I had, that kind of level of brutality going on, it would cut me up too. So I'm very aware of why the Black Americans feel the way that they actually do. And I'm very aware of why my mindset is very different living in this country, and why I haven't probably been so rattled about every little thing. But my eyes are wide open. My eyes are wide open to the things that, do happen, why things are allowed to continue. And I think some people just need to stand back a little bit. And going back to the John Barnes, Ian Wright thing, if they were ever able to make a call and say, right, these are the kind of things that we're going to do, these are the kind of things, it would look really gimmicky, and it would be like a one-off thing. It wouldn't have any kind of sustainability. And then people have to ask themselves why. Now, the answers to that, people say, Raff, mate, they're not running the Premier League, they're not running the FA. And I'll say, fine, if that's going to be the answer then. But then we're always going to be in this problem, aren't we? Because there will not be a situation where we are talking about, maybe in time soon, a black leader of the FA, a female black leader of the FA, maybe. We're not having these conversations. So we're always going to be in this situation where, it either looks like a gimmick because you've just, again, wheeled in John Barnes to talk about racism back in the 80s, or we don't do that. And the other extreme, you just take control. You as the white male group take control, and you keep setting the agenda. And that's why these things happen. And that's just football. Just football. That's not even me talking about the rest of the world and the bigger picture.
Yeah. So that could that's very good points, actually. But that could segue us on to the Rio Ferdinand documentary, because you mentioned their black FA chairman. They wheeled out a black female board member to chuck her two pence worth in on that issue. Yeah, that was I thought that was a really interesting documentary.
Yeah, it was good.
And taking my point of view on it, I was like, how clever was John Terry's solicitor to obviously guide him to suggest that he was the victim.
Yeah.
That he was defending himself gallantly by saying, what do you mean I called you a...
Yeah.
Right? That was his defense.
Yeah.
In the... from the CPS. The CPS brought the case. And not Anton Ferdinand.
Yeah, Anton.
And not Anton Ferdinand. And I thought, that's the slippery snake way that you just don't have to have any accountability whatsoever, around this.
Yeah.
But then, again, was it one of those issues that should have gone to court and been and been hauled up there? Because he's entitled to a defense, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's entitled to a defense. But yeah, so Anton Ferdinand issue, that documentary. What did you?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, I didn't watch it straight away. Saving it because it was the kind of thing that I couldn't have watched live and it'd my mind really not ticking away. And that's for so many reasons. Second thing I'll say is that excuse by John Terry, I feel like I've used that at school myself, where I said I was repeating something. Not saying, I honestly have visions of me saying it. It's like, this is something better. But yeah, and again, just from a live incident point of view, I just remember, obviously that game as a Chelsea supporter is one of those things I just thought, we don't need this, we just don't need it. Chelsea in recent years has had like these spikes, something will happen, and no one will ever remember anyone else. Again, people will forget Millwall, by the way, as extreme as that sounds. They'll forget that stuff.
Well, it's already it's already 2 weeks ago, isn't it?
Yeah. But and it's hard. It's been hard. And I said this in our supporters group, like, it's hard supporting Chelsea as a black male sometimes. They don't make it easy for you. When it was the guy that, they're pushing off the train in Paris, and then you got a group of fans singing it, like, all of a sudden they represent the Chelsea fan base, which I know to be true. That's just not the Chelsea fan base.
Yeah.
And then you got the John Terry thing, the player, and before you know it, we're saying, well, he's Mr. Chelsea, so surely it's a racist club, that kind of thing. And I always find that kind of thing embarrassing. So at the time when that happened, I remember thinking, damn, Like, where's this going? And to cut a long story short, and I come into detail of the documentary, but like just my own personal feelings on it, it's people have asked me that question, like, how do you feel about John Taylor? What do you think? Like, he's like missed the Chelsea. You think about the thing that your best days as a Chelsea fan have been because of this guy's leadership. Actually, like a bunch of soldiers on the pitch, and he was the general. It's one of those where it's like I find it very difficult knowing that, not just because he said it. So I don't know, the whole idea of someone saying something, making them a racist person versus saying something racist. I don't even know if that even matters as an argument. But what I do know is that I find it hard to, admire him in the same way that I know a lot of other Chelsea fans do. I admire him as a player and as a leader beyond belief. I don't see him past a player, whereas there are other Chelsea players that I do see beyond that. You know something about their family life. You look at Drogba and the stuff that he does in Africa. You know more than that. But the one thing that we'll go on to the Ferdinand situation. Like, I think it was really clear that obviously he was guilty and that he did it. It was interesting. What I found interesting about the documentary, though, was what Ferdinand said about the way he felt versus what he heard of Terry. It's a pity we couldn't hear that, because I know the argument against that would be, well, that's your feelings, Anton. Yeah. You just said that you felt that way. But you've just heard one version on tape. Maybe if we listen to your version, maybe actually we can say, oh, there was some banter there with you too, Anton. I don't know. And that's the one thing I criticize a documentary for, because if you're going to do a documentary, like, you should probably show both if possible. Otherwise, it can be very...
it's a one-sided argument.
Yeah.
For me, it was so in the criminal court, you have to go beyond reasonable doubt. Yeah. And in the civil matter that they had after he was found guilty, because on the balance of probability, he said what was seen on the camera, and his defense doesn't stack up, as I was replying and saying, what do you mean I'm calling you right? But what was what I thought was really a problem was the lack of, they couldn't find half of the interview, certain parts of the interview. They only had a certain amount of Anton Ferdinand's interview or John Terry's interview. I can't remember which one it was, but it was definitely one or the other, where we've lost it. It's a CD, right? They found some of it, but they've lost another part of it. That to me is the smoking gun. And that was, I don't know if that was the FA inquiry or if it was the police interview.
Yeah.
But that was the bit for me which stuck out over all of it, because that identified the differences in treatment between the two people.
Yeah.
So whatever it was, whatever happened, whether it was, a small incident or a massive incident or what have you, how they were both treated, to me, because I like to be, I'm fairly liberal towards, what people can say and what people, can do and how they can act. And I'm very liberal about that, because I think you kind of have to take offense as opposed to give offense, right? You have to take, it has to affect you. But where you had them lose that interview, that to me speaks volumes. That to me says there's something there that you can't, that you've got to, you've just got to go, oh, we've lost it, but we found this bit of the same fucking thing, right? How do you mean you lost it? And they're not going to press you to go, listen, either someone's head is going to roll or you're going to find that and we're going to hear it and the truth is going to come out. Because now the truth will never come out about it because they've lost it. How many times do things get lost and you can't see them? Oh, we can't show you that. Do you know what I mean? For some other reason.
And that's why, and some people would say he was the captain. Of course, they're going to treat him differently. Of course, he's going to have some extra. That is exactly what goes on all the time in other walks of life. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. It happens in schools. happens in schools with the way some children are treated. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it down to the point of permanent exclusions. Actually, I've seen point blank. And I can't remember if I said this to you last time, where I've seen a white child actually be physically hit a teacher and not be permanently excluded, but have support actually to get their situation better, because they clearly wasn't mentally right and blah, 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 and all the rest of it, and reintegrate them back into school until they can move on, no permanent exclusion. And then I've seen another child, black child, who one day, this is the phrase, one day he's gonna hit someone, one day he's gonna hit someone, shows any, never had a fight with a student, let alone touch a staff member, and the slightest sign of aggression, like all mouth stuff, gone. Yeah, after a build up of having these mini outbursts, but never putting his hands on anyone. And I've had to call those things out. And that's just one. I'm giving you one example, and then I'm not talking about one school. These things happen all the time, and it's they kind of said it in the documentary when Anton was with that lady, and they were just talking about the idea of you're with people, and for whatever reason, there's this connection. You can't quite put your finger on what it is. Some people bond with others. That's all good and well. That's very true. There's nothing we can do about that. We all connect with certain people for whatever reason. Personally, I'd like to think, if I look at my spread of friends, male and female, I'm definitely connecting with people beyond things like race and gender. Those days are long gone for me, and that's not me trying to say that I'm some kind of angel. I just honestly feel like I connect with people in a very different way. But having said all that, it's a thing. You just have to know how to check yourself, though. If you're in a position of power or authority, you have to check yourself and look at that. And that's what we don't have. And the second problem we have is if you look at the demographic and who's in control of these things, again, we're talking about the same people. So then that's when it does become a problem. If your head of your FAs or your whatever are white males, that's why I can say with confidence, I don't even know why you're still kneeling. I don't know why you bothered, because I don't, as an organization, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy you. I don't buy it. I don't,
Yeah, well, it's it's by the by that you say that, as far as my feelings around it. But I tend to agree. I think these are small little nuggets, and I think you've sort of said it before. As why are they giving you that? What they're giving you the knee in front of the game to say that's what's going on, but then they lose half an interview. They lose half of the interview. I don't want to speak out of place, because this is going to go on the internet and it might get scrutinized by one of my 20 subscribers. Who knows, right? But I think it was the FA who lost their interview with John Terry. I could be wrong. It might have been the police that lost their interview with John Terry, but I don't think it was the police. I think it was the FA who said they requested it in the documentary. So there you go. There's your bias straight away. Do you know what I mean? Did they now treat Anton Ferdinand? Did they prep Anton Ferdinand in a certain way? Or I might have had that wrong, because the FA basically fined John Terry, didn't they?
Yeah, they did find him.
But it was one or the other. Somebody lost John Terry's interview. Somebody lost their interview. They had all their Anton stuff, but they lost everything else. So I mean, you say that happening in schools. I'll tell you what, mate. I've got a story for you, but now's not the time.
The good thing about the documentary is just a bit of insight and this is the side where I don't mind it being, it's not the most objective. It's his documentary is about his life, so just looking at stories about his mum, how he grew up and all the rest of it, because, and this has happened, I've seen this in football quite a lot. When I remember the chants going around with Anton, you know what you are, and it's like, that was off the back of the Terry situation, because Terry could do no wrong, right? So it's like, what is he? You must say, what is he? Go on, say what he is. You know what you are. Where is this even going? Now, that's the kind of thing that he would have soaked up at a few grounds actually, just to give him a hard time, let alone Chelsea. Um, so I remember the hard time he got, and I would love those same people to have watched the documentary. Just let your guard down, you know. He's not a captain leader anymore. You know, he's moved on. He's at Villa. So accept that, and then just think about what he's describing. Think about what he's saying about his upbringing, and then, you know, a bit like the Denver situation. Think about why he might feel that way, given he said he didn't hear it. But actually he had people show him. So it's coming from family. Yeah. You can imagine it's a very different thing to managing it on the pitch,
well,
right?
He said in the tunnel, right? He said in the tunnel, I saw him and he goes, "Are we all right?" And he goes, yeah. What's up? No worries at all.
Exactly that. So, you know, then you find out from third parties, and then that's a harder place to soak it up from, because now your family are a part of it. It's not like this isn't the war ground anymore. So when I see fans give him a hard time because you just can't see beyond what you want to see, again, it you know, my whole thing about it's not just tribal. It's not just that you want to say as a fan, you want to see it through blue lenses because you're a Chelsea fan, for example. It's discomfort. You don't want to be uncomfortable believing that might be the case. That's what it truly is. What sits underneath that. You don't want to. You want to go, you have your 90 minutes and you want to go to work Monday to Friday, when you come back here on a Saturday again. You don't want to believe actually that there's something else going on that might make you question, as I have had to do actually, you know, for years, since the age of 7, supporting Chelsea, looking at little things that have happened and go, you know. So that's that one. And then I've seen other players. I remember this was probably 2015 or 14. There was a black Chelsea fan talking about football and blah, blah, blah. He said something about racism. And I remember him getting it, like, on the internet, like, just even in chat groups and stuff, just like, or he's probably made a bit of money, that kind of thing. No one said anything wrong about him in terms of, like, there was definitely nothing racist, but just the idea of, like, you know, he couldn't possibly be telling the truth. Right. Why couldn't he be telling the truth? Why can't that be his experience? It's definitely not my experience. I know exactly what I do the second, and I tell everyone, I actually feel it sounds very extreme. I kind of wish I'd actually experience it one day. I wish, just to prove a point at Stamford Bridge, I'd love someone to say something around me, to me, whatever. It's just probably never going to happen though, because I want it so much. But that's the kind of thing that I'll be saying, like, you know, if that's his experience, you know, traveling away, maybe, whatever.
So was he saying that he had a really negative experience as a black fan?
Yeah, right. He was. Okay. Yeah, and he wasn't just talking about away fans. He was also talking about Chelsea fans. And I think that's why everyone found it really hard. It's like, you know.
So in the stands as a Chelsea fan, he's listening to it all around him. Because a perception that I would have is, like, you know, I've been to a handful of football matches, right? But I've loved them every time I've gone there. And I don't know. I mean, there's so much going on. There's so many different areas of the crowd and stuff like that, or what have you. But I think you're going to be pretty brave to start doing racist chants these days and things. So how long have you been going to Chelsea for?
Long time, man. Like, properly early 2000s as a member and a season ticket holder. Okay. My first game was like,
so circa 20 years. How many games would you see in a season?
What is it? How many home games? And there's 30 something games. I probably do some seasons quite a few aways, maybe a handful of aways. It's a bit patchy with the away, but home I go every home game for the last few years. Right. And that's not even including cup games, really. So
So you're a good measurement for how you feel in the stands as a black supporter.
Yeah, I would say. I would say, and I honestly, and again, I'm not like sitting in some fancy box. I'm not hearing anything. But it's interesting because I don't need to hear any like blatant abuse for me to think there's a problem, and that's where I see things different to some people, because I would say I deal with that quite easily, and actually at least I know where it is in the ground or the stand or wherever it is. It's never going to happen. It's always going to be something a bit more subtle that I've got my eyes open on or open for. It could be something as simple as, and we've been talking about this openly as a group. That's one thing I like that we spoke about back in like July, August in our group. It was the black players and the short sort of fuse that everyone has for them in terms of poor performance, but you don't know where it comes from. Then there was that study, and I can't remember if we mentioned this last time. There was the study that they did about football commentary and how many negatives a black player has as opposed to a white player. That's there. Statistics are out there. There was a great podcast on it. I think Talksport did it, had a really good debate about it. And our group will then look at it, listen to that. It's amazing. It's amazing because those are things that I'm aware of growing up. That's the things that I hear with my own ears. Yeah. And the football commentary is quite lazy in comparison to some sports. If people have improved, and I mentioned Alex Scott earlier, having people like that actually who have really tried to study and become really good at their media work have actually improved it. But when you just drag in old pundits because they were ex-players, they just use the same old cliches, and then fans adopt the same language. Yeah. And it was one of the big things that we jumped on was the idea of certain players having like bad attitudes and being lazy. That was something that was analysed. It's something that I have heard, and it isn't something that you say about certain players, but you say about others. And Drogba's a legend, mate. Drogba is an absolute legend. Like, when everyone thinks like Drogba now, everyone's like, and I say everyone, I mean everyone's like, wow.
I'm a Liverpool fan, and I think you got to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, and everyone thinks the world of him. Yeah, but I remember.
But when he was playing.
Yeah, I remember games 100% with my own ears where people are like, you don't want it anymore. He's got one eye on the African Nations Cup because that was coming up or what have you. And it's like, isn't it interesting when his career is done and you look back at how many Wembley goals he scored in finals, insane stats like that, and what he won you on a regular basis. But when you were in it, it was too easy to say certain things about, not just him, but like there were other black players as well. And there's some players, I saw Lampard go missing for quite a few big games. And I remember thinking, would I drop Lampard? I think I would. I remember thinking that. I think I would drop him here. I think he needs a rest. I think starting every game isn't good for him. I don't hear anyone ever talk as though he had bad games. Because he's a record scorer, and fine. He's all of those guys, all that whole generation. They're due everything they get in terms of credit, but it's just interesting the journey along the way. So I mentioned that because I just know there's things that are more sophisticated and more complex, and that was one of them that people need to look at. Not how many people throw banana skins and such. That's not going to happen. And when it happens, you eject them out of the ground. They probably get banned. They probably get beaten up. Whatever.
I guess it's like therein lies the unconscious bias element of things. So you might not you might think that you're doing it across the board for everybody, but really what you're doing is you're actually just sort of subconsciously singling out through the media or what have you a intolerance of the efforts of the black guy over the efforts of the white guy on the pitch. That's really interesting. Really interesting. And then they sliced it and diced it, and they put the facts and figures down on it, and they said that the comments and the commentary and the analysis is
across all the leagues, by the way,
is a percentage higher, or is a certain percentage higher for black players than it is for white players. That is interesting.
Across Europe,
right?
A proper study, and I was so chuffed with it because it's the kind of thing that had I said something even close to that, maybe 5 years ago or something, people are
whatever, or you can't prove that. You can't back that up.
You're very right. So you look out for it, that kind of thing, but it's happened. It's happened, and I've not just heard it on TV. In fact, it happened after this study came out, and we were watching it, and everyone just texted up at the same time. Antonio Rudiger is a black German player. He made a mistake, and I can't even remember if it led to a goal or not, but he definitely made a mistake. And the comment was him lacking football intelligence. And then I just put it in quotes, and then someone else texted, "Did you hear that?" I was like, "Lacks football intelligence." I mean, can you imagine a German international footballer lacking football? A German defender, all bloody positions for what we know of German teams. If when it starts stereotyping,
you're the greatest of the great if you're a German defender.
Yeah. And you lack football intelligence. Yeah, they gave it to you, so doing handouts. Do you know what I mean? It's a big thing to say. You made a mistake. You say you made a mistake, but it's not the kind of label that you would have given. Maybe I don't know. There's certain white players that you would have just said they made a mistake. Actually, you left it there.
But you're not questioning their intelligence or their it's subtle, isn't it? It's subtle, but it's quite impacting to have it put that way.
A black fan, right? And that's the kind of thing that you're sensitive to. Because I don't actually believe you have to be particularly intuitive to pick up and stuff like that. I just think you just have to it's a bit of a blow because you're underrepresented in the ground, you're underrepresented in the game, whatever it might be. You just have to feel it a bit more than everyone else. So that has a knock-on effect. That has an effect on how you carry yourself. Because if your heroes are getting kind of shot down, your role models a little bit, and it's like, damn, like, come on, guys, have a good game, please. Like I remember saying it. Chelsea have got a black keeper now, Mendy, who's come over, and we were and ahhing at a keeper all summer. And there was a young Dutch black keeper that we had our eye on as well. And I remember thinking there's two things. I thought Dutch league, very technical, but it's not the most robust. He's not the biggest guy, and it's a scary position, man. You make a mistake, that's it. It's all over for you. It's not like anywhere else. I didn't want him to come. And I said it in our supporters group. I was like, I don't want him because I don't think we're ready for a black goalkeeper. I said, not now, not at all. I said, I can't see it. Anyway, Mendy's come, and what I like about Mendy, apart from the fact that his quality, is his personality looks like someone who, if he does have a bad spell, he looks like someone that isn't going to find himself in a rut. He just looks quite extroverted, quite confident,
robust.
Yeah, and I think that's what we needed if we're going to have a black keeper, because his own fans aren't going to boo him. We're not, that's not happening anytime soon. But there will be criticism, and there will be things like, he lacks positional sense, or and it's like, how does he respond to that?
Not great at set pieces.
He doesn't want it, he's not up for it. Jumps up in the air. Just...
Oh man, what else have we got here? I wanted to say, have you ever seen the movie Bamboozled with Spike Lee? It's a Spike Lee joint.
I haven't.
Yeah. Oh man, that's one to watch. I was thinking about it, because as we were sort of discussing doing this and in the planning and stuff like that, I just remember that as being one of those movies that was a real eye opener for me. So I was in my early 20s when it came out. It came out in 2000, and it's got the Damon Wayne.
I'll be surprised.
Wayne brothers. And there's another guy, but basically he's a movie exec, and he is going to make a movie that is going to tank the studio, right? Because he wants to bring it down because there's this like institutional racism and this bias and what have you, and they've sort of rebranded Tommy Hilfiger to another brand, and they're talking, there's like a sub storyline going on about how sort of black people are basically just buying up these designer clothes rather than finding better ways out from wherever they are. And the adverts are really blatant. They're like hey, buy our shit and stay in the shit kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, keep in the shit, and it's like this really kind of blatant, but Spike Lee does it so well. And the show is basically it's blackface. Okay. So, but it's black people putting on blackface. So it's kind of like they're saying, well, here's the here's your comedy, here's your show, you know, uh, and it ends up sort of backfiring, and it makes a fortune because it's so popular. These black people doing blackface because everybody wants to see it, and everyone's, but they don't get it. Do you know what I mean? They're just kind of like, oh, that's great. Do you know what I mean? A black person's doing blackface, so it must be all right. Yeah, but it's like, that's the irony. It's kind of like, well, okay, so now you can tolerate it. If I give it a little tick, if I check it, yeah, then it's okay. So yeah, I just thought it was.
Video.
Sorry.
It's like a Carlton Palmer video that
Oh,
Gavin
man.
shared.
Okay, yeah.
Like, the laughing and the joking around some of the stuff he was saying, he made it okay. He made it okay to say fairly extreme stuff. And that's why, I wasn't interested in him. And I always do this. I always default to what else is going on in the room.
Yeah.
He's like the Millwall for me. So he's saying his thing, spouting off, as though people don't need to be worried about X, Y, Z. But I'm looking at their response, because what I get from this is, you need him. You need him to feel okay and to not feel uncomfortable. You're in a good place when you're not being made to feel uncomfortable. He's not making you question anything about, the way you may have behaved or your perception of the game. He's making you feel quite the opposite. He's making you feel comfortable by telling these black players, get on with it. Back in my day, blah, 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 blah. Big Ron, my mate, Big Ron, who went on a racism education course after calling someone the N-word and getting out, all that stuff there. And it was embarrassing on his part, but it was them. Like, they shouldn't need that. They should be able to say, well, hang on a second, Carl, I know what you're saying here. And maybe Big Ron wasn't the biggest racist, but please don't use him signing black players as an example of why he wasn't racist. Just makes him a businessman. Like, just please don't do that. But they didn't keep him in check. And that tells me that you're quite happy to sit there laughing at him. And either you think he's an idiot as well, but you didn't challenge him.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're in a position to, and he should be challenged.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a perspective, isn't it, on that? And it's legit. It's legitimate because of what we're saying there. That didn't even register when I saw that. It didn't register the dynamics of the room and what he was feeding those other people, and whether they wanted it or whether they were just like relieved by it. But it was things like I didn't mind. If they threw a banana on the pitch, I'd pick it up and I'd eat it, and then I'd win 4-0 and I'd go home in the cab and I'm all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the way I looked at that was, I thought, that's really brave of you to be able to, and that's why I put that little quote.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I looked at that. But I looked at it like that. You look at it like that. I'm not saying I'm looking at it like this in a really narrow-minded way, because I understand what it is. But I'm looking at it from a position of what I can control about it. And if I put myself in his shoes and I think, okay, you're a professional footballer, what's your modus operandi? And that is to go and win football games. Yeah. And they're the crowd. What's their modus? And that is to stop you winning that game, right? So I look at it as the back and forth, which allows me a little comfort to not think about the complexities of what that does in the bigger picture. Yeah. And then that brings us right round to what do we do about it? What can we do about it, if anything?
One thing, I mean, if we did focus on football as an example, because going back to my group, and I feel like I didn't want them to lose their way, and I keep saying it all the time. Like, when we first started this, what were we talking about? We weren't talking about George Floyd. We were talking about football. We were talking about the football culture. And my whole thing is, the question is, who owns the game, or who believes they own the game? And it's everything I've already said about, the FA and the kneeling, to how the BT studio runs at half time to whatever. But I said that filters down because, going back to what Carlton Palmer said, if that ground at the same time was, even 30% people of colour, there ain't no banana skins being thrown. There's people that are brave enough to do that. No. You do it because you're brave and comfortable and there are, and if there is a person of colour in the crowd, they're a proper minority. There's only a couple, and he was up north half the time anyway, so it probably was like that. So we were talking about that from our point of view, and I was saying, what's interesting for me, and I'll try not to go in because I've got big theories on this one, but Arsenal Football Club is a very interesting one for me because Arsenal have made it safe for black fans to say that they're football fans and that go to games. They predominantly made it. Our generation, I would say, not so much, which is interesting because if you look at the time that we were growing up, we'd already made decisions. Gilbert was already going to be United. I was already there. Amrit was already before. All that stuff already happened. It's a generation after. It's the ones that were coming through, seeing your Rocastles and your Ian Wrights and your Campbells, the kids that were coming from making. We're talking about a handful of black players, right? But that was enough for black fans in North London and around to say, yeah. You look at it now, I can guarantee you, I can literally easily, Arsenal, just like that with school kids, very easily, which I should be able to do. But it's because, and half of them don't really follow football. But if they're going to say football, it's going to be Arsenal. Now, there's no logical reason why it's not Tottenham. When you think about the area and all the rest of it, if anything, it'd be more Tottenham, but it isn't. So Arsenal, they have done it deliberately. It's just something that's happened. It's almost exponential. You go, he was Arsenal, I support him too. It's much harder to say that you're a West Ham or a Chelsea supporter as a black fan, actually. So when I look at that, I say, well, what is it that Arsenal have done? How has it got there? And what is it that we're not capitalizing on? As a Chelsea fan, we've had the only black dreadlocked manager in the Premier in the top flight. No one else can say that. We've got the only black manager. The only one that comes close is Chris Hughton, who's a mixed race guy, right? Fine. But you're talking about a black dreadlocked man managing the club and winning things, right? No handouts there. Black technical director from Nigeria, Michael Emenalo, Roman Abramovich's right-hand man until he left the other day. Then we even go down the gender route. We had Dr. Eva running out on the pitch as well, our lead. I can't remember her exact role. She wasn't head physio, but she was our lead in our medical team until she had her spat with Marino, and then that went wrong. And then we know Marina Granovskaya. That's Marina. That's Abramovich's right-hand woman. Every deal we've done this summer and before, that's literally her because he ain't in the country. So when you look at where we're coming from as club, it's interesting. It's almost like you've got every reason, right? And don't even talk about Drogba being voted amongst all the 70s and 60s heroes. You put all of the most valuable player in Chelsea's history, whatever. So you put Black African up there as a club. So all that stuff goes completely against the things that people want to believe. But then we look at Arsenal, it's like, what are you saying? You're talking about a handful of black players, and actually, to be fair, you got some more when Wenger come in and all the rest of it. But we're not talking about anything beyond players. We're not talking about black managers. We're not talking about black management. We're not talking about black directors. We're not saying that with Arsenal. But yet, the Arsenal fans still find it very safe, and that's fine. Whatever works. It's a bit of an illusion. So then, going back to us, I was like, we need to start thinking about that because. I personally don't think there's no problem in the ground really with that kind of thing. But if you do want to change that feel of who owns the game, and we had really complex discussions. We were talking about, people were talking about match day, like pubs, who goes to pubs, the food you get in pubs, culture, where that comes from. Again, that someone owns that. It's a bit of a monopoly. No one's saying anything's wrong with it. You can't do anything about that. We're not saying we made a few jokes about it. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to have some Caribbean food places. No one's saying that.
Little steel band outside, yeah.
So no one's saying that you got to go to that extreme, but it's just worth noting that there's something that works against the culture that you're trying to generate, which is this diverse, whatever, blah blah blah. Which for whatever reason, Arsenal have to think about. You know, they have a very large black fan base in the ground, even more so outside the ground compared to most clubs that I can see in the top flight in this country. So yeah, we had this big discussion around it, and the one thing I couldn't let go was, let's just look at those factors. Let's look at those factors, because for all the things that you guys are worried about, the things that even I'm not even worried about, but if you're talking about, racism in football and changing people's attitudes towards certain players and da 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 da, well, none of that stuff happens if 30% of the ground are people of color. None of it happens. The only reason some of these things are problems is because you've got this minority and you've got a large group of people who are predominantly white males in the crowd. That's where the problem comes from, because then all of a sudden they don't have to think about anyone else. So then you do have a high chance of a flippant comment. You have a high chance of a homophobic comment, a sexist comment because of female linesman or whatever it might be. Exactly. So they're comfortable because there's no change there. And I've seen it, mate. I've seen it where I sit. We've had every now and again, like, players will give tickets to a group of people, so they're not season ticket holders, don't own them. And I remember, whose family was it? God, I don't know if it was John Obi Mikel. There was a family that come in, all the guys come in, all the black guys come in. They were all sat in front. And I remember, people looking around, man. People were a bit twitchy, people were a bit nervous. They're probably thinking, oh, they look hard. Oh, and then the other guys and they weren't acting like, typical Chelsea fans or any fans really, because they weren't up and down for it. They clearly had come there just for the day.
Yeah.
They probably were never going to come back. They clearly got complimentary tickets. But it was almost like this sort of, nervousness around, and they don't realize when you flip it, that's exactly how it can feel. It can feel nervous. You can feel that way. Like, personally, never, because I don't compromise any of that stuff. Like, I just wouldn't go. If I'm going to feel uncomfortable, I ain't going anywhere. Those days are gone. I'm too old for that nonsense now. But that's how I would have felt, in the first day. My eyes wouldn't open, I mean, going to the ground, I'm thinking about, who perceives me a particular way, overthinking it all. But it's with the group, I just didn't want them to ever, and I don't want them to let go of this idea of, like, we can get bogged down in some complex things, but let's simplify it when we need to, which is, how do we control or dictate that culture? How do you attract people? How do you make people feel like how Arsenal fans feel? Like, what is it that's missing? Chelsea, again, we're going back to the black thing. Oh my God, our youth teams, we got a youth team that was pretty much all black. All those guys that have gone through, and actually Frank Sinclair said it. He goes, Chelsea's youth academy have done more for black players in this country than any other club. You look at the number of pros, even if they're not at Chelsea now, the number of pros that have come out going this way. And literally that youth team that's picking up FA Youth Cups, pretty much all black players, left, right, and centre. You're talking about a good at least 7 to 8 to 9 at times in those teams. And and you can see it. So it's almost like you've got all these things working for you. What is it? What is that disconnect between that kind of reality to the club as an institution, but the fan base not quite? Because it's either a pressure to not be that way as a fan base, to not acknowledge it, or there's some kind of block not allowing. And that doesn't mean that there aren't young black Chelsea fans. I've met them. There are. Yeah. But it's just interesting that Arsenal have it so damn easy when it comes to that. It's weird.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose like what you said in the beginning of this about football replicating society, I suppose the resistance there is are the stands the final frontier for the of the street change, when you look at the cultures changing in your town and in your city. It's like the sacred stands are, that's the last stronghold, I suppose, for a lot of the diehard staunch fans. And then I guess
sorry, I agree with you. I think it's seen that way, and I actually when you put it like that, I actually would say I completely agree. I'd go as far as saying, when people go there, they're trying to get away from all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're trying to get from PC. They're trying to get away from like, oh, let's talk about diversity. They want to just let it out. They want to be who they want to be. They don't want to like come there and feel like, because there's all these comments. That's one thing I accuse Chelsea of, comments about tourists. And it has been a thing, since Abramovich days, since 2003-4. Yeah, Chelsea. I mean, look at where Chelsea is for a start. It attracts a lot of tourists. It attracts a lot of, and it affects the atmosphere in the ground.
Yeah.
But while I can say that as a factual thing, I know some people will use that to have a dig at, average, Chinese or Japanese fans that are coming over and all the rest of it. And like, he's talking about tourists.
And they want to go and watch a game. Americans, they love it. They want to get some tickets for the Chelsea. I tell you, I got, I was given some tickets for Arsenal, and I was at the Emirates, and like, I was thinking, the Emirates, going to go down to the Emirates, going to watch Arsenal and all the rest of it. And the atmosphere was shit. It was so dead because there was just people like, and it really was like a real sort of section of just a mix mash of just people who, just were there for the brand, for the image. And I was like so disappointed with the, because the Emirates is huge. It's epic, right? I mean, I'm sure you've been there, right? And just sitting there, and you just want to hear this sort of swell and this rush of noise and stuff, and it was just so. It was a little bit naff. I was actually quite disappointed, but I mean, it was great to. It was great to be there, but there was something missing from like proper football.
Definitely, a lot of fans, a lot of clubs have gone that way. To be honest with you, I mean,
maybe it wasn't the game either.
Yeah, it's a big deal for Stamford Bridge to be rocking, but then I do know Arsenal have struggled with that for a while, particularly since they moved. But because they used to say Highbury Library, and then
oh, is that right?
Yeah, and then it got even worse as far as I know. But I would say that it's interesting because what makes the atmosphere, like, who is that? What is that? Because it's that thing that people hold on to. They don't even realize that thing that you're holding on to sort of prices out or sort of eliminates so many other people. Do you know what I mean? Because what you're talking about, you're not talking about women, for example. So that's one thing. And so if I had to like say guess who, you had to like flip down who you wanted to get us there. Yeah, I know who you're flipping down.
Okay. Has he got dreadlocks? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly that. It's and it's, but it is what it is. If that's football in this country, it's football in this country. Like, I'm not gonna try and deny people that it is what I like. I like the atmosphere at a good game. I just, it doesn't have to be made of one type of person to get that atmosphere. The other irony is, if you look at other sports where people just don't stop, they don't stop singing, they don't stop celebrating, whatever. It ain't some conservative white male. It's quite the opposite of that. So it'd be interesting, actually, like, if you could just break that barrier for people to feel comfortable to enter the ground on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about economics as well. Does that play a role? Does the price of tickets price certain people out? If you look at socioeconomic backgrounds, what have you, yeah, maybe, but not completely. That's not the biggest factor. There's a lot of people I know, and I say this as a kid growing up as well. Like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to want to go to a game with on your own or with a friend when you know that what you're going to be up against is a lot of people that might be staring at you. Some of the stories that I want to tell my group, I haven't even had to tell them because I just know that they're already just hear ranty stories. But I remember when Chelsea won the league in 2005, and I went to the parade with another Raff. Actually, I went to uni with another Raff, and we both go up there. This is 2005, and I'll never forget. It was a nice, warm day. I lent him one of my Chelsea shirts because I'd never really, and I still don't really wear shirts to games, but I collect them, and it's a parade, so you're going to wear your shirt. So I just put on, like, and I deliberately made sure I didn't wear some bloody 2000 shirt. I wear one of my 90 shirts because otherwise you're like one of the newbies. Yeah. And I lent him one as well. never forget, we're walking.
Still a pecking order.
And I remember I had like a fisherman's sun hat on. I think he was wearing a cap. And we're walking, everyone's drinking in the rear, everyone's having a laugh. And I'll never forget, like, this some of the looks from a couple of people, because it was almost like we were almost like aliens, because we definitely were a minority. And right now it'd be very different, because I mean that's how things have changed in the last 15 years, because it just feels very different in terms of the mixed fan base, and that's across age groups, everything. And I remember one guy was like, oh, he got his mate. He's like, oh, come here, look at this. And he just wanted to take pictures of us. But he did it in this kind of like piss takey way. So almost like we were like, you know.
Yeah, look at me. I'm here with these two.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's almost like
it's like when the girls dance next to the old dude in the nightclub. Yeah.
It was
They're not doing it because they want to dance with him.
Exactly. It was pretty much like that. But like,
don't ask me how I know that story. I haven't been to a nightclub for a while. All right. I promise it wasn't me.
But if you've had that kind of experience, that's enough, if I'm honest with you, to say, I ain't coming back to this. You know what I mean? I'm not stupid. I know exactly what's going on.
I'm like the fall guy here. I'm like the guy that people are looking at and going, isn't that quaint, so that they've popped along to soak up some of our culture.
Yeah, and no one wants to feel that way in any situation. I wouldn't wish on anyone. No one wants to feel awkward or out of place or anything else. And you know, if the majority of people at a place are white males, that's not the problem. But I've said it to my friends. We were talking about it. I was like, whether it be going to certain pubs, my eyes are open. That's why I'm very much about, you know, go back to the idea of comforts. Like, I know exactly where I should be. I know exactly where I shouldn't be. And you know, if we find a pub that I like to go to before a game or after a game, the reasons why I normally want it is very different to other people. There's normally things that I've clocked. And sometimes it isn't just because it's like, you know, got loads of different people from different backgrounds in there. Actually, sometimes it's not even that at all. But what it is, I know it isn't. And what it isn't is like full of white males, actually. And I said that to my friends. I told them that. And I said, that's really weird. So I'm saying it out loud to you, and you're a white man. You're probably thinking, wow, actually, we've got a problem with me. But I'm saying to you, like, I expect that when I go away. If we go to an away pub or whatever, I walk in knowing that's probably what I'm going to find. But when I'm staying at Stamford Bridge, home game, I don't need to feel that way. I don't need to go to a pub where, like, first of all, I hate queuing for drinks anyway. Secondly, like, I want to sit down. And there are so many good spots that we can go to that don't feel that way. And it brings out something different. You know, not everyone's staring, not everyone feels threatened by my presence, not everyone's probably trying to size you up, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, I suppose there's a lot of that goes around, which is a shame, because you doing that and feeling that, you know, you're going to be more comfortable, you're going to have a better experience going through that, means that you miss that sort of, that, like, you know, that real rah of football. Yeah, I mean, especially the pub before the game and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? And the booze flying or whatever, or the club anthem going on, and everyone giving it the beans and whatnot.
Which is what you would do. Like, and again, like I said, I don't compromise that, and I don't give that up now. But I don't, because I am sure about, like, what I'm doing and where I'm going. But you're so right. Yeah. And that's what people, if you don't have to make those kind of compromises, you don't know what it's like, because you're in the moment. Like you say, you're soaking up something that, you know, if the extreme version of what I'm saying is someone like constantly checking, constantly listening out for something that you don't want to hear. Black players on the ball, and you're not sure what people are saying. You don't know if their criticism is because he's just made a mistake, or because he's black. You're not, you know, that's the extreme version of just constantly not being there. And you could easily turn around and say, well, that's your problem, mate. If that's how you tend to spend your time, that's what you do, then fine. That's what it feels like to grow up, you know, compromising. And I go back to the Denver bar thing. It's like, you know, it could be someone's life, actually, that is that way. A lot of people don't understand that.
That is horrible. I mean, the only thing that I can compare that to, as you say it and as you speak it, was it's kind of like the only thing I've ever felt close to that, and I've been in situations where I've felt like as a racial minority and all the rest of it, and I've often got through those without actually. I've often sort of, walked into a situation or a place or a event where I've been visibly the only person of color, and I've always come out even higher. Do you know what I mean? I've always sort of gone in and then like just had such a great time that I've come out and, like that sort of thing with the photos or whatever, but not with the same kind of like, look, here's the, do you know what I mean? But on a definitely on a level with other people and made friends and stuff like that. But having said that, the only thing that I can compare or get an understanding of where you're coming from when you're sort of constantly second guessing was, I think there was like a recent terrorist attack, and I remember thinking I was in a place, and I was just like, it sort of dawned on me that because terrorism is so, because it happens, and you hear about it so much. There was this one time where I was thinking to myself, you know what? I just don't feel safe being here. And I'm looking at that guy and I'm looking at those people over there, and I'm wondering where my exit points are. And I'm having to think about my own personal safety. And I'm not enjoying it. I'm not enjoying being here because it's just, there's too much that can go wrong. So I'm thinking about that for like a thing about a terrorist attack. So I'm trying to get under the skin of what it must be like to be, a person who's constantly thinking, not constantly thinking, but aware of like, if the black guy makes a tackle from the opposite team or what have you, and then they're all like, oh, that sort of that initial kind of like, oh, and Raff and you bastard, and all that sort of like that initial kind of aggression and anger or whatever. And has someone just gone, or as someone in that melee in our crowd done that now? Do you know what I mean? It's like, and then you're kind of second guessing it, and then it takes away so much enjoyment for you. Or you're booking your holiday, like you say, and you're thinking, oh, should we go to the wherever? And we go, not sure if we should, not sure that's the resort for. I'm not sure we're going to find what we need there, Jeremy. But just to have that, for me, it's like crazy. I'll go anywhere, walk in anywhere, do anything or what have you, and take it as it comes. But I don't have a privilege in that respect. But brown people have a different time to black people. Do you know what I mean? It's. I don't think it necessarily equates to, I think there's a spectrum of prejudice.
Yeah. Well, that's what that documentary study shows you, mate. It's literally based on skin tone. Like, really? I'm going to send it to you.
Really? Wow.
It's crazy. It's not just black and white.
Let's link it. Let's link it to this. Let's link it to the podcast. Send it to me, and I'll put the link on.
Yeah, it's insane. But you're right, it is so complex. And then the flip side to all of this, because I've had this conversation with people since, the summer, mainly because, if I'm honest with you, like I said, I was in a place where I didn't know what the hell was going on. And then when I did, one of the things I did think about, which I didn't see coming, was, Raff, like, how, what have you been doing, mate? Like, how have you been living? And this idea of, God, you do, like, you compromise a lot without realizing, but then it sort of features into other aspects of your life as well. So it's not just me going into Marks and Spencer and making it clear that my hands aren't in my pocket. It's not just me, picking 2 countries or 3 countries that I'm only going to go to. It's not just that. It extends to just the way you are as a person, like your habits, like you're, more likely to compromise in key situations. You're more likely to hold on and not go to the toilet when you want to, when other people just get up and walk out of a meeting and come back. You start realizing that it's a habit of a lifetime, and it features into the different, into all your different behaviors. And you can see it in other people as well, actually. I've actually since had conversations with like really savvy teens. It's interesting. They've said similar things, and it's mad because I wouldn't have seen it at that age. I said, mate, I didn't see it until last month. Like, there's me thinking,
Yeah,
I
this
didn't
next generation, they're some clever
yeah,
kids. Kids
yeah,
today are really, really switched on. They have got so much like culture being just through your phone,
yeah,
just through the mediums of what they can see and what they can relate to and all the rest of it. And you can almost see that kind of like, how we get older, our generation, you get to about 35, 40, and you finally kind of start getting it. When you start realizing and understanding, oh, okay, right, that's how things work, or this is the experience now that I've, you know, um, been privy to, or um, had open up in front of my eyes, and I didn't realize this was going to be the outcome or whatever, and I've learned. But kids now are looking at this in little snapshots, and they're getting it really quickly, and it's I think that's one of the positives actually for the next generation, is that they're going to be some switched on, savvy little bastards.
Probably will blame our generation for not, having our eyes wide open at certain times. And I'd say, fine, I'd take that on the chin and say, you're probably right, because I see it every day. I see things that they see that I wouldn't have seen, and I'm sometimes embarrassed by it. And it's like, damn, yeah. When you look back, you should have seen more, or you could have not even said more. It just wasn't on your radar as a concern. And some of that is growing up in a bit of a bubble as well, I guess. Like, there are a lot of things that I'd say we didn't have to worry about. But
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily swap it, because I think what we had as a generation was phenomenal. But yeah, there is a part of the next generation coming through which it's almost like a hyper intelligence about them. Obviously some of them are morons, but others and the good thing is you don't hear about them very much, because they don't rock the boat, but they all seem to be some pretty clever kids out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So what else have we got then? I think we're I don't know. I think we're almost there, aren't we, Raff? I mean, we've done 2 hours of blabbling on about all sorts of bits and pieces. I did want to ask you what your first ever experience was and how you felt going to the football there. Quickly tell me about that one.
First ever, mate. I would, again, going back to what we just said. All I could see was the game. All I could see was the game. Didn't think about anything. The most intimidating thing would have been my age in comparison to lots of older people around me.
Yeah. Who did you go with? Did you go with a group?
It was one other guy. I can't remember his name now. Like teen stuff, but I had that gap though from the one game like early 90s, and I would have been like TV radio man. But when I went back after that, I went with the guy Jamie a few times, and this is long before like I met the group that I'm with now. So I used to go with him or go on my own actually, and just sit in the same kind of area, see the same faces. But I would say, it was one of just being, eyes wide open, because that's the good thing about this, is as much as some of these things are negatives, like it allows you, once you are switched on, you're very savvy. You've got the emotional intelligence to understand what's going on at key times. You're reading situations, and I definitely would have been focused on the game. But going back to what you said earlier, I probably guarantee you I wasn't as mindful as some of my counterparts around me. Like I wouldn't have been as like in the zone unless like something amazing was happening. I would have had my wits about me, before the game in particular, because before the game's always been nice awkward. You'd be hanging around, I'd be texting people, catching up with people, all the rest of it. If I was on my own, I'd be in the pub just looking for a seat once I've sat down and had my drink. And everyone chats to everyone. It was all cool. Like you always like chat to someone, but you're always reading, especially in the pub. You're like, what's this person thinking? What's going on there? And it was always cool, but yeah, it's a funny one. It doesn't compare to say like the last, say 6-7 years of me going with the group I'm with and all the rest of it. It's very, very different experience. to the point now where the game isn't even the most important thing anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely like meeting the friends and stuff.
Getting out there. Jeez. I mean, I suppose you're sort of itching for a trip down to Stamford Bridge at some point. Are you filling in the ballots and stuff?
No, I'm not doing it. For that same reason, like it's just weird. Because, you know, if I do get one and no one else does, what am I doing? I'm not getting on my own. I'm not that desperate. It's like not in the empty ground, not with 2,000.
Yeah.
So, and honest with you as well, I said this to my mate the other day, that I'm kind of feeling like I'm happy to just give it a miss for a while. I feel like all that sort of Millwall stuff just gave me a bit of a bad taste. It's like, I don't want to be in the ground where that stuff's debatable. I don't want to be in the ground where, you know, you might, you know, not saying that Stamford Bridge would have that issue, but like, I just don't want to see it. I want it to be over. I want it to be done. It sounds like I'm also saying the same thing that I said a lot of people don't want. It's
No, I can understand it, because you're going to go from being, sorry, man, you're going to go from being a guy who goes to the football to enjoy it to then all of a sudden being a token. To the to what's going. Like that's not very nice, is it? That's not very comfortable.
2,000 in smaller numbers, though. I'll be one in 2,000, which makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah. Everyone's enjoying the game, and the camera's just going to pan in on you, and you're going to be sitting there going, "Get the camera out my face, man." You know?
Everyone just So I just don't want all that, and it's like I want football to kind of make its mind up about what it's doing before we go back one way or the other. Just decide where you're going, what you're doing. Let's not talk about this stuff. That doesn't mean you ignore it. It just means that everyone has an understanding of what's going on, if that makes sense. And I just don't think there is an understanding right now. And my thoughts are evolving all the time, which is weird. Like the stuff that I'm saying to you today, I wasn't thinking about, you know, a month ago.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got that taste of, again, the kneeling, and then you know, I watched the Colin Kay documentary, and then I started looking at the wording and the language. I'm thinking, this is the problem. This is the problem. And then it's like, and who knows when my thoughts are going to be in 2 months' time? I might be telling you I hate football.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it is ever evolving, isn't it? You know. But what about, was it Les Ferdinand at QPR? Made a statement about QPR and they were not going to nil. Am I right about that? Is that?
Oh, no, didn't QPR? I think QPR.
Wasn't there something like, not for the match that they played, but didn't they quite early on kind of like go, okay, well, we're sort of done with the whole kneeling bit, and I mean, I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure that somebody had come out, and it was a black member of the coaching staff. I thought it was. Did I say Rio Ferdinand? I didn't mean Rio. I meant Les Ferdinand. Yeah. And it was something about it's not going to solve the issue, or it's not. It was like it run its course. He said something quite profound about it, and it was like, you know, or it was just down to the players now. They can choose whether they want to kneel or not, but it's not something we're going to press ahead with. I thought you might have.
I saw QPR do something recently, but it was in counter to someone that was booing. So it was something like quite the opposite, but I didn't catch wind of.
Was that when they scored the goal and knelt at the?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I saw. What I saw. I was thinking, I'll get on the QPR. You know what I mean? You want to make a stand. I'm all for players doing what they want to do, particularly players. I think with players as opposed to clubs or any kind of organisation or governing body.
You want to put something underneath your T-shirt when you score, and you know.
And that's interesting. You mentioned T-shirts. So, what was it I was watching? It was about racism in football again. God. Was it the same? Oh, was it the same Anton? Was it the same Anton one when he spoke to Carragher? Not Carragher. The Liverpool captain.
Henderson.
Yeah, when he was talking to him, and Henderson, there was about the T-shirt thing with the last time we had a sort of Negros
Suarez
type.
Suarez. They all wore Suarez on the training on the top.
It's mad, isn't it? Because again, like I didn't really think about what that meant in terms of supporting him to the degree I would now. I did think about it and I called it as it was, but I just thought it was interesting. But like that's a massive problem in the sense of, you know, if you believe Suarez, it's very similar to this linesman situation. Like I think it was the same situation, pretty much. But again, like Henderson said, we weren't taking into account how someone else felt, you know, to the point where you defend your thing with madness, really, to the point of t-shirts, when actually all you've got to do is say one thing, but be empathetic about what someone else might be feeling and why they might be feeling it. And he said that, and that weren't that long ago. So it's just interesting to see how, you know, if someone had questioned that at the time and gone out, then I would have looked almost like anti-Liverpool, or it would look quite thin-skinned as a black person, or, you know, there would have been this kind of thing being said. But those narratives change. And I know that times do change, and I'm all for that. But it's just like, for me, I don't want people to be hypocritical when it comes to that. I want them to be able to say, well, you know what, that's how I felt. A bit like Henderson did. You know, just say it as it was. That's who I was. That's what I thought. In hindsight, I wouldn't have done it for the following reasons. You know, and I think
I didn't understand it, perhaps. You know, I didn't understand what was, you know. But then I suppose sometimes these organisations, they're their own worst enemy in many respects, in the way that earlier on in the conversation where I said, what about the linesman? Yeah. And the reason for that was because I thought, well, at some point, these two are having a disagreement. And then at some point, that disagreement has got to be resolved in some way. A really easy way is go, you, Mr. Linesman, are never working again. Look how anti-racist we are, right?
Yeah.
And another way is to kind of like go, right, okay, look, I understand your point of view. And this guy didn't mean it like that. How do we compromise? How do we come together and for you to both understand? If we're lenient on him, when are the external pressures that you now represent as somebody who's been, you know, who feels racially aggrieved, gonna stop being a factor in what we do about this? Because that's kind of what I see happening. Do you know what I mean? Something happens, and then everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody wants a bit of, you know, that's not justice. Do you know what I mean? Like what happened to Anton Ferdinand. His career could have just kept going if it wasn't made such a big deal about. Now, I'm not saying that to say it's not a big deal to do that or to say those words and all the rest of it, but there's got to be a context where you kind of like go, it's been dealt with internally, or it's been dealt with professionally, or somewhere like that, because I don't think we're ever going to stop. I don't think we're ever going to stop it necessarily. I mean, it'd be lovely to say everybody is nice and everybody's kind and everybody's thoughtful about each other. But the bottom line is if we're in a competitive situation and we're always trying to get one up on each other to win, there's going to be a point where I'm talking to you about what color skin you have and you're talking to me about what color skin I have, perhaps, you know.
Only in the context of football, because if you compare it to other sports, no one else really seems to feel the need to go there, like more aggressive sports.
I don't know, but I believe you. But if you take it away from sport and if you put it into society, even if I don't say the color of your skin, what's to say that I'm not going to find myself a little way around it, right? If I'm truly vindictive enough to hate you, if I'm truly vindictive enough to hate you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find my power, and then abuse my power whenever I see an example of you. Okay, whenever there's an example of you, I'm going to assert that level of power. If I'm a racist, okay. So when you have these other scenarios where it's tempers flying and it's competitive sport and things like that, I'm not saying it's got to be a lower threshold or what have you, but there's got to be somewhere where people just don't, like, people don't scream for death as a solution to it. That's what kind of makes me think that this is a superficial solution to what is actually a much larger problem, where people lose evidence and people lose tapes of interviews and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Because what they did was actually, when they look back on it, was actually a prejudice or a bias towards a certain person or a certain, somebody who had the captaincy or what have you, and I don't know if that is going to be, it goes back to sort of sweating the small stuff a little bit, but it's such a hard conversation to have, because then you sort of like go, but it's those little bits that matter more than the other bits. So it's kind of, how do you quantify this problem? And I don't know if we're ever going to be able to quantify it or resolve it at that base level. But you have brought forward some really interesting points around perception of the other person's sort of, field of vision around it, whereas there might be other people that don't have it. I say I do have it to a large degree, but I see it differently. I see it in more of the way the processes are abused and stretched and manipulated to allow, like, institutional racism. So in like, sort of like the from things like policing to social services to just the way things are dealt with and things are looked at, and there'll be areas where things are seen to be as very important. So it's easy to say, like, if you walk into Marks and Spencer, you've got your hands in your pockets, right? And okay, there's Geezer with his hands in his pockets over there, happens to be a black guy, just watch him or what have you. Or that kid who was at the school and they say, listen, just one outburst from this one and he's gone. Do you know what I mean? And so he's now tied to this thing of, like, not having to have an aggressive tone, or to not be able to stand his own ground with fear of losing it. Whereas the other kid gets to hit a teacher and then gets, like, loads of support thrown at him. So those areas there, to me, are heinous. Those are where the real crime is, because it's really thought about and it's really considered, and there's loads of paperwork being manipulated, and there's a nice collective thought process where, you're going to get a complaint from Billy or whatever, this is what I think, but you make up your own mind about it, but I'm just making your mind up about it, but you make up your own mind about it. Those areas of prejudice, to me, are missed, and they evaporate into the distance, because we then go, hey, that linesman said black guy over here. It's a shit scenario, but what we have to do is we have to flick those scenarios and concentrate on the real horror stories that are going on. I don't even know if that's out of order to say, but I think there's got to be a time where, because otherwise you get the hyper normalization, of the scenario, where it's like, people, or it takes away from something, when you sort of, when you don't put those things into context, it takes away from something, whether it's the beauty of the game, the flow, or the freedom, or the movement, or the ability to chant, because you don't know what's going on in a chant, you don't know what it sounds like, what's being said, or what have you, and all of a sudden we lose all of those sort of civil liberties that nobody wants to do. But we all want to be nice and multicultural at the same time.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I think again, all some of those surface things, and I would consider that linesman example to be very similar to some of the things that every headline. I mean, most headlines that we read are literally that. They're like there's headlines, and they're noise, and they keep you busy. And I don't want to get all seriously with it, but they do keep you busy talking about those things. But when all the smoke screens blown away, what are we talking about? We've normally moved on to something else.
Where's the headline for the missing interview from his statements?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that headline?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that's the headline. Hey, guess what? There's some bullshit about them missing a CD. You're recording it on one CD, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? You're not recording it on two CDs and there's a third CD. This isn't now 98, right? It's not a box set, is it? You're just going to record the interview on a CD, and that's where it's going to be. It's going to be on a computer file. You can't fucking lose it. You can't lose it and find a bit of it. You've either lost it. You've either lost it or you found it, haven't you? I mean, like that. There has to be a really bizarre scenario where you find a bit of it. It's a digital file, right? You don't lose it. I don't know why that wasn't such a big thing.
I know, it's true. It did kind of get...
It's the racism. You'll find the racism in that file that they couldn't find. You'll find the bias in that bit. I guarantee it. Because that's what they didn't want you to see. But they want you to go, hey, this linesman said black guy. It's like, fucking hell. But all right, that's a terrible thing. But can we there's some real bad shit going on as well. I don't know. They're not focusing on it. But anyway, that's just me.
Those things divide people as well, didn't they? That's what, again, going back to those two extremes, because there'll be people who see that, but they won't be saying we should be looking for something deeper. They'll just say that isn't something to blow up about. And then what that will do is make them less empathetic towards people who are actually going through things and struggling, including Demba himself. And then and then that's how you polarize people because by that nonsense. And I strongly do believe this, and this is a Marxist theory that Eastern sexuality, because it always comes across very conspiracy. I strongly believe that those things are very deliberate in the media. When things are put out there like that, normally we only see things that they want us to see, and those kind of stories do polarize people because they keep certain people in control. You're not asking the right questions. You're not looking at the right places. You're not turning over the right rocks. You're just dealing with simpleton, stupid, basic arguments and getting your head caught up into who was wrong and who was right. And before you know it, you've solved nothing. So,
it's definitely a good conversation.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. It's quite scary, if I'm honest, to do it so long form, or it's difficult to even, I mean, like you get ridiculed just for having an opinion these days, and there are people who would be afraid to have the conversation. But I think the more conversations that I had on this subject, and the more conversations that everybody has around it can only be better. 100%. I've learned things from this conversation that I genuinely didn't consider, even being in such close proximity to my friends. So it's like it's good. It's really refreshing. It's good.
For sure.
All right. Well, my friend, I think that's a good 2.5 hours of conversation. I'm pretty pumped, but I think what we can do is we can head back again on some other topics. I'm sure something else is going to come up. Have we covered off everything for you at this time? You all good?
for sure. And yeah, I will keep you updated on my evolving thoughts because, like you say, there will be something.
Yeah,
100%
definitely.
happen.
I think the next time, as soon as we get something, let's just get it down on a podcast and send them out there. But I'll go through this in the next few days, and we'll get it out and onto the internet, and the other lads can laugh at it, and we'll take it from there. But Raff, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. If it's like, I can't even see myself. If it's gone all dark, I'm sure you can do some special effects. I'd rather be Bruce Banner and the Hulk.
I'll see what I could do.
On a train and a bus in a car on the way to your job.
I'm going to press stop record there.
All alone with your kids, with your wife or with your dog. You can listen anywhere, you can listen everywhere to the Philip Maloney podcast.